Oh God, here we go.
It's true.
No, I believe you. What's the other really popular free-to-play mobile Japanese game right now? Not Code Vein. What's the other one? Azure Lane.
I don't know. I downloaded one the other day that Chef Lubu was talking about, called Arc Knights, which is like a tower defense gacha that actually looks pretty fun.
Okay. I didn't realize.
I haven't played it yet.
Sorry, I didn't realize Azure Lane's actually Chinese, not Japanese. So it ain't Japanese. It's a China game.
All right, I am ready to clap whenever. Do we want to do? You guys?
Time
Excuse me.
Is.
Oh no! Back to the Future is killing Apple.
There are worse things we could lose. I say as a person very happy with my iPhone. Okay, you want to do 15 and 20?
Sure.
Sorry, I have not got anything open.
Okay, that's
I'm on the struggle bus today.
Word.
It's fine.
Okay, I've started recording.
Baller.
That's step one.
Yeah, that's what they say.
First step to recording a podcast is to start recording.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go at 50 and 55?
Sure. Sounds perfect. Perfect.
Right.
In total unison. All right.
Okay. I will get us started. And you can't do that face at me. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 111 of Gaming Fix on this March morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. Joining me this week, I've got Alex and Sam.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, that's my style. I'm not going to pause and let every person introduce themselves, and we're not doing any stupid bits.
No humor allowed. Serious
Mostly because I
endeavor.
can never come up with anything as quickly. I don't know if Andre workshops those for like a time before the episode, or if he just comes up with them on the spot. But I am not.
I think it's actually what he does at his workplace. He does not. He doesn't do actual work. He
comes up with your girl's favorite blah 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 blah.
Correct.
That's all he does all day.
Yeah.
I'm not quick enough to come up with that stuff off the dome, so I have to sit and workshop all of my jokes. It's a blessing and a curse.
You'd be a great stand-up comedian then.
Oh God, I don't ever want to do that.
I did stand-up comedy for 4 years.
Your stand-up comedy is probably I probably would have liked it more than most professional comedians. But I really don't like stand-up comedy usually.
If you were doing stand-up comedy now, it would just be about Trails of Cold Steel and Destiny 2.
Again, I would take that over most stand-up comedy.
And The Division.
Oh, I should play some more Division.
You could not. It's not very good.
It sounds like that DLC is real weird.
The problem with that game is that it should be great. It's so close to being very good. But as you play through it, there's like 4 guns. And then you get the same gun over and over and over again. And it sucks because it's like, well, I've been using this LMG for 4 hours because I got a new one, but it was just the same one I had before. It just now does +1 damage. And that's the part about it that I hate. Destiny 2, at least you're like, oh, now I'm using a fusion rifle for a while. Now I got a good auto rifle. And now I got a good hand cannon. And it's like you're changing between things.
The words Destiny 2 were uttered within the first 5 minutes. Oh no.
I haven't played Destiny 2 in 4 months. But we can still talk about it.
You brought it up, Alex. I just want you all to know.
That's true.
No, I brought up The Division. Oh, wait, I did bring up Destiny
said...
with the stand-up comedy. You're right.
Ah.
Fair enough. Point taken.
Well, Sam, speaking of games that
only I play and only I will.
I was trying to go with a nice way to segue that wasn't shitty, because I actually have been playing Trails in the Sky on and off, and it's really good. So I'm excited to play Cold Steel. But do you want to tell us about?
Speaking of games tailored to Sam's interests.
Yes, there you go. That's a great way to put it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the games you've been playing?
Yes, I have been playing Trails of Cold Steel 2. I'm 20 hours in.
Oh, wow. How did you get 20 hours in?
I was 15 hours in last week.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm...
Oh, I thought that
I managed to play 5 hours over the week.
Okay.
No, I finished the first one... Do you know, I actually don't remember when I finished it.
It all bleeds together, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think around the time I started my new job, I finished the the first one. I basically, if everything goes to plan, I get 3 hours in the morning on Saturday and Sunday to play games. Mm-hmm. So I only had like an hour this morning, but I still managed to get some progress done. So the thing that I've currently noticed about Trails of Cold Steel 2 is that there are no new areas whatsoever. They're all just the previous areas. But like when I went to a town today and I was like, oh, cool, I found I'm in this new town. And I was like, oh no, it's just the other one, but it's foggy. So I don't know why it took like 3 years to come out, even in Japan, between 1 and 2, because they're extremely like the same. And there's not enough dialogue to warrant the difference.
That's interesting. So is it kind of like how in Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 you always go back to the Citadel? Like it's always the Citadel, but it's slightly different? Or is it actually like literally the same geometry and map and everything?
So you don't currently... I haven't been back to the school yet. So your main home base in the first game is the school, Thor's military academy. And in Trails of Cold Steel 2, your main base is like a mountain town where there's a hot springs. And whenever you leave a building, it tells you where you're going to. And it's like when you leave the building in your hometown, it's like the hot springs paradise, which is funny. There have yet to be any hot springs misadventures, but it's anime, so it's probably going to happen. You're set. It's like the town that I've just gone back to, that was like, it's the same town but foggy. It is the same town but foggy. Like the geometry is exactly the same. They have added new like shrines in every zone that I've been to, so there's been like some updates and changes, but like when I went back to the market town, which is the first town you visit in Cold Steel 1, and it's also the first town you visit in Cold Steel 2, it's exactly the same. The same NPCs are walking around even, but it's very funny because in Cold Steel and the Trail series as a whole, one of the things they're big on is that NPCs have their own stories. So like every NPC is going somewhere, they're doing something, and if you talk to them, like what they say updates based on the story. And every single NPC has something interesting to say. It's not like every single NPC is plot vital, but like there's in the first game in Keldic, you meet the old park ranger who's drunk living on the streets because the army have seized the park.
Of course.
And then in the second one, when you meet him again, because you freed the park, you made the army leave the park alone last time, he's park ranger again. And when you need to get back into the park, you've spoken to him and he's like, hey, I can help you get into the park. It's really cool. And even though the environments are the same, they are putting in a lot of new characters. There's already loads of new people on the playable roster. And it's like characters that were NPCs in the previous game are now playable in this one. And it's all the characters that I thought were the coolest characters. So that's good. It'd be like if in Final Fantasy X, Auron never joined your team, but then in Final Fantasy, like the next Final Fantasy game, Auron joined your team. Yeah. So it'd be like if there was a canonical sequel to 10.
There was
where you played all the same characters and then they just added in Auron.
That's kind of what happened
before.
So So would you say this is more like Trails of Cold Steel 1, 2, or Trails of Cold Steel 1.5 so far?
Kind of, yeah. There's loads of new mechanics, and like they introduced loads of characters in the first game, and they're like, oh, and these guys are all working together. They're all part of the same terrorist organization that was the antagonist in Trials in the Sky. And like, there's multiple characters that they introduce to you in a way that I'm like, I'm supposed to know who this is from Trials in the Sky, aren't I?
Look, did Fraser Crane's studio change from season 1 to 2 of Frasier? Did Tom's Restaurant change from seasons 1 to 2 of Seinfeld? Did the apartments change between seasons of Friends? No, it's fine. Doesn't matter if look, you're gonna go to Central Perk through all those games, and it's okay as long as the story is good.
Well, the TARDIS is always the same.
Into the story, definitely. But yeah, they put a lot of work into the story.
That's cool.
I'll check in again like later in the game.
Well, I'm sure you will.
in the same way that Fire Emblem has 2 acts, this is divided into 2 acts, and I don't know how that's going to work because currently I'm in the middle of a huge civil war, and the next. I know that is not ongoing in the 3rd game because I've accidentally read the back of the box for the 3rd game and was like, oh, this is a huge spoiler. Brilliant.
Does it have anime cutscenes or all the cutscenes in engine?
They're all in engine.
Yeah, okay.
There's an anime intro when you boot the game, which is incredibly good for both of them. That's good
at least.
Yeah, the first one might be the best one because it has like it's all about trains, because in the first one you take the train everywhere.
That's amazing.
In the first one you take the train to everywhere because trains are like hot shit in the universe.
Like it could have been about a million different things, and you went with one of my favorite obscure things for there to be an anime intro about.
Yeah. And like you follow a train like into the capital city, and then like the logo comes up. It's very cool.
That's really funny. That's
yeah.
It was. I played a train simulator for 4 hours 2 weekends ago.
Also, Pat, I just want you to know that when you take the train in Trails of Cold Steel, you play a card game with your teammates.
That's good. I do want to play
when
it.
You're on your train journeys. You can talk to them and then you can play cards.
I don't really need to be sold more on it. It's more just I'm kind of waiting to pick it up on sale on Steam. And it was on sale on PSN and it was a pretty good deal, but I'm waiting for it to go on sale on PC because I really want to get it there so that I can potentially use either Steam
GeForce Now
or GeForce Now, to be able to play it in the future from when I'm away from my desk, whether that's laying in bed or on a bus or something. So yeah, until Falcom
says no.
Yeah, obviously the PlayStation also has remote play, but but something about I just for some reason I want that game in particular on PC. It also might run on my
1 is on GeForce Now, but 2 and 3 aren't.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't really familiar with this series beforehand. Is it really popular in the West or is it really popular in Japan and we just haven't heard much about it over here? Or
it's not popular over here really. I think that it's one of those series where when you're a fan, you are like very evangelical and into it.
I haven't played nearly as much as you, obviously, but I've played a good chunk of Trails in the Sky now, which is sort of the first chronologically and first release in the Legend of Heroes. This block of the Legend of Heroes series, I'm actually not sure if there's
the Trail
series. Yeah, there are other Legend of Heroes games. But Trails in the Sky is like, for me, I think it's super unique. And I think Cold Steel, I don't know how much of it from what I've seen, the mechanics are similar, but I don't know if they're super close. But it's like, it's really unique because of the battle system feels like a kind of a hybrid between something like a Final Fantasy and a Fire Emblem, because you're still encountering enemies, but they're not random encounters. They're like, you see the enemies on the map, you encounter them, and then you have these tactical battles where your party's kind of moving around a smaller grid. So that's really cool. And then the biggest thing, though, is the writing is just like very good, and the localization is really excellent. And so I think that's really what does it for me.
I wonder how long
it's like a visual novel with a JRPG hidden in it.
Yeah,
a lot of JRPGs
in the sense that every JRPG is like that, sort of, you know. But the writing is definitely the thing that's kind of captured me. And you know, it's clear that they have a very competent grasp of, like, it's clear that there's a story they want to tell, and it's not just like, well,
boy loves the girl, it's a school.
Yeah, like playing, even only having gotten a few hours into Trails in the Sky, it's very clear that the arc of that game and the other Trails in the Sky games was already plotted, like the outline of how that story was going to go, because they're clearly setting things up that are not going to even be really talked about for a long time, but in a cool, like, in a smart way, not in a frustrating way. So it seems very intricate in terms of its storytelling without being overwhelming or frustrating.
Yeah, Trails in the Sky takes place literally just before Cold Steel, and Cold Steel takes place at the exact same time as the Crossbell arc.
Yep.
The Crossbell arc, you play a like vigilante police unit almost that are like trying to increase the public perception of how cool it is to be a police person, which is super weird. But yeah, these games, you can tell that they are talking about events from other games sometimes. So like whenever they talk about Crossbell, they're like, oh yeah, the mayor of Crossbell is doing this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, that's probably a huge plot point in the previous series.
And what's interesting is that Trails in the Sky is told from the perspective, there's two main nations, and Trails in the Sky is told from the perspective of one nation, and they definitely cast the other nation as like not the antagonists of this story necessarily, but as villainous and oppressive. Whereas in Cold Steel, you're playing as the villainous and oppressive side, and they're not framing them as bad guys. So you get the perspective shift, and they did just such a smart job of like telling the story from these different perspectives without making it, while like kind of making you understand how the characters living in both of these places feel about each other in the world and stuff. So it's very well told, I think.
That's cool.
And I think the other thing about Trails in the Sky, is that it was written as one game, and they were like, this is 130 hours, and they chopped it into 3. So it is one full start to finish story.
Yeah.
And that's how they've written all the others after that, because it worked so well for them. So cool. Like they've known what was going to happen in Trails of Cold Steel 4 before they wrote Trails of Cold Steel, which is really cool.
That is cool. All right. So if Sam is getting into this series, and Allison has talked about getting into Atelier, however you pronounce it.
Well, Allison just bought the first Trails of Cold Steel game.
She did, but she's mentioned getting into Atelier, and I guess that means I have to get into Mega Dimension Neptunia, obviously.
Hyperdimension Neptunia?
No, Mega Dimension Neptunia.
I don't know what the difference between those things are.
It's from the Hyperdimension Neptunia series, but Mega Dimension Neptunia is a separate offshoot.
Okay.
And
right.
what does that mean? What kind of obscure in the West JRPG series are you getting into then, Pat?
Well, I mean, I've also been playing Trails in the Sky, but I've also spent a lot of time with Granblue Fantasy as a media franchise. I haven't watched the anime yet, but I want to get a little further in the mobile game, because the anime just is an adaptation of the mobile game story.
Yeah, I wasn't actually meaning that as a transition. It was more of a
no. I'll talk about this. Is good.
It worked out.
I'll
it
talk
worked
about
out
Granblue.
pretty decently.
I'll talk about Granblue, and then you guys talk about the other game that you've been playing, and then I can talk about the other games that maybe people don't care about. And it's great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because then everyone knows they can cut off after me and Alex are done.
Totally. Granblue Fantasy is a very good browser game, which I never thought I would say that about a browser game, because I'm usually not a browser game kind of guy, but holy crap. That game is great. I still haven't spent any money on it, and I'm just kind of trucking through the story. The story is super long, obviously, because the game's been in development for 6 years, and it's like not particularly visual heavy. The visuals are great, but they're all just like the character art. But this week, the Arcsys developed fighting game offshoot of Granblue Fantasy Versus, released. And I have played quite a bit of it, and I think it is really fantastic.
So do you have a history with anime fighters? Like, do you have...
No.
Okay, so you've kind of not been into them up until this one?
So I loved watching people play Guilty Gear when I was younger, but I never got into playing it myself because it was too complicated. And I never really got into any fighting games because I was not good at them. The closest I got to was I played MVC2 at arcades with other friends, but like we didn't know what we were doing. We just we just put quarters in and button mashed. So then I did, when I was working at GameStop when the first Blaze Blue game came out, and some people came in and they were like, this is the best fighting game of all time. And I was like, all right, I'll buy it and try it. And I played it, and I really, really liked the story mode because it was a visual novel with fighting stuff. I thought that the art was amazing, but I was terrible at it. And at that time, online was just not really like, I think it had it, but netcode was not good enough for fighting games then. And I didn't know anybody who was playing it. So I just kind of fell off of playing them at all. And then, I have Dragon Ball Z Fighters. That game is cool, but it's too fast for me. The air dashing and like the speed of the combat is just too much. Someday maybe I'll be able to get into it, but I'm not there. But Granblue is really cool because it's kind of a back to basics anime fighter. Like, I've heard some people say that even though it's an Arcsys game, it's not really an anime fighter because it doesn't do things that are typical of that genre. Like, for example, having air dashes. And it doesn't have like, it doesn't have touch of death combos where you can just like tag someone, and then since you got them in that one hit, you can kill them. Instead, it's much more like it's a lot about positioning, and the combat has something of a deliberate pace to it where you're paying much more attention to like every single input, and it feels very tactical to me in a way that I'm sure all fighting games feel to people who are good at them. So
would you say it's like the Dark Souls of fighting games?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as punishing in some ways as something like a Dark Souls, but it's definitely deliberate and tactical, I think.
Sure.
It is really smart the way that they've done things. Like there's like a Smash Brothers attack button. So if you push R1 with a direction or standing neutral, you do your special moves. So if you're playing a character for the first time and you just want to try them out and see what their special moves feel like, you can use that. There's also technical inputs that you can do for them, but they're all like fireballs. Like they're like quarter circles and stuff. They're not like crazy like Z motions or anything like that. There's the forward down forward motion that I have some trouble with sometimes. That's used a lot, but I'm getting better at it. And basically like the special moves are on cooldowns, which is kind of cool. And when you use the button, like the R1 button to trigger them, the cooldown will be longer than if you do the technical input. And generally they'll do more damage with the technical input also. But it also means that if you have an ability that you just want to like throw out with that split second faster than doing the technical input, especially if you're someone like me who's not as fast as like a pro player. You can also just nail it on the button, on the skill button, and it's fine. And then each character also has like a unique attack action. Like I've played Gran and Catalina so far, which are the character in the middle and the lady over there.
Yep.
Gran has like a charge blade, kind of like a Roy or Marth from Smash Brothers for on the X button. And then Catalina has like a shield that she holds up, and if you attack her while she's shielding, she hits you. So the unique abilities are pretty cool too. And then I've mostly been playing the RPG mode so far, which a lot of reviews have kind of derided as being boring. I can see that. It's basically like a brawler where you're getting like a story sequence where it's just dialogue back and forth like a VN, and then you get dropped into a battle and there'll be like guys coming into the screen from both sides, and you just start fighting them with the standard controls. I actually like it because it helps to, it feels like you're progressing through something and you're unlocking stuff, but also you're learning the inputs better and everything. Excuse me, because all the controls are the same. So it's been good for that. I wouldn't buy it if you're only interested in the RPG mode, because it is extremely simple. Well, simple is maybe the wrong word. It is very repetitive is the right way to put it. It's actually more complicated than it needs to be, because it uses the weapon grid system from the mobile game, which is not a thing in the versus modes. But in the RPG mode, you're like setting up your weapon grid, which is kind of the core of the mobile game, where you're picking like a primary weapon, and that has an element and skills on it. And then there's a grid of 9 other weapons that you're not using, but you put them on the grid, and then they increase your stats and give you like skills and stuff like that. So it has that. And it even uses things like when you complete a quest, you'll get a draw ticket and stuff. So it's like the RPG mode is pulling directly from the mobile game in some fun ways. But it's definitely not like quite meaty enough to purchase the game based on. So I don't know. I think it's a really good, has beautiful art. It looks incredibly good. And it is, the other thing I really like about it that the reviews have picked on it for is that it has a kind of small roster. I believe it only has 12 characters right now, and one of them is a DLC character. And then one of them is one that you have to either buy the season pass or beat the RPG mode to unlock. And I understand that people like it is kind of, I can see the frustration in currently the game plus season pass is $90, and to only have 12 characters for that I get it. Like that seems like bad value. As someone new to the genre, 12 characters is so many for me to wrap my head around already, that I am so glad that it doesn't have more than that. Because when I look at like the Mortal Kombat character select screen, there's just like, when you include the DLC, there's so many characters and it's so daunting. Yeah. And that's true of a lot of other games too. So I actually kind of like the small character count, and I think it's engaging enough that you can get hundreds of hours out of it. So I don't think that the cost is really a problem, but I'd imagine, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'd imagine with a smaller roster that each individual character probably plays pretty differently, or they feel pretty different.
Yeah, very much so.
Also, have you tried much of it online, or have you mostly?
No, I haven't played online at all yet.
Okay.
I'm sure that I will be pretty terrible when I get around to that, but it has like a ranking system so that you can try to find matches that are closer to your skill level. It has you do like placement matches and stuff. So, hopefully that'll I'll be able to get into it some. I kind of want to finish the RPG mode first. It's not super, super long. It's like 8 hours long. I'm playing through it very slowly because I'm trying to 100% every quest. They have dumb, like the first time you play the quest, you don't get to see what the bonus objectives are. You can complete them, but you can't see them beforehand. So then if you miss one of them, you have to play the quest again to unlock it. Oof. And I shouldn't care because the rewards are not, you don't need to get them to progress, but it bothers me seeing that I didn't complete the quest 100%.
Got to make that 100% show up. I feel you.
The story is interesting too, because it's like set in the middle of Granblue fantasy somewhere. It's like an untold side story or whatever, where you go to a bunch of the locations you go to in Granblue fantasy, and there's like shit going down with this like evil crystal thing that's controlling people. So it's not like super great. The characters are very endearing, just like they are in the browser game, and that translated well, but the story itself is like whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I think if you are on the fence about, if you're like me and you've always wanted to get into fighting games as a larger genre, and specifically anime fighting games, but have had a hard time finding an endpoint, I think this game is really good for that. It also has a very robust training mode where it's not just like, it has a sort of brief encyclopedia of all the mechanics, and then it has a pretty exhaustive set of missions where you're trying to complete a bunch of the different mechanics, and every character also has a training mode where it kind of goes over their special moves and stuff. So overall, it's just a really good package for people interested in getting into the genre, I think. And it's the kind of thing where, while I wouldn't buy it alone for the RPG mode, if you buy it and go, well, fuck, I am terrible at playing this online and it's really hard for me to get better, there is at least something you can play through and not feel totally burned while you're trying to like learn the combos and stuff. So yeah, I think it's awesome. It's definitely up there for me so far this year of games that I have played. I have not played a ton of new releases this year, but it's a good one.
Cool.
Yes. So speaking of visual novels that then use other genres, there's a game that the two of you have been playing that I'm interested in maybe playing. The fact that it's only $15 makes me far more interested in playing it at some point.
Yeah.
But you've both been playing Murder by Numbers?
I sure have. How far in are you at this point, Sam?
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
You're definitely muted.
Yep.
Sorry, I haven't left the break room yet.
Oh, okay.
No way. I've left the break room and I've gone to the office.
Okay. Yeah, you're like third to halfway through the first thing then. First case.
Cool.
Yeah.
I went for a drink after work and didn't want to play it 2 beers in. Because I was like, I want to pay attention.
Yeah, because that's an interesting part, is that the story is actually pretty compelling. I have finished the first case. I did not note how long it took because there's no time played tracking in there. I played over the course of the day, like half an hour here, an hour here, etc. I didn't track it, but I would guess that first act probably took somewhere around 5 hours, maybe 4.5 to 5 hours. So it's pretty meaty, and there's 4 cases. Yeah. So nice. I can see this being like a 20-hour experience.
Very cool. That's a long game for the cost.
Yeah. And it has a really interesting set of characters who are all written pretty well. And like, it's pretty charming and like generally clever. It has a lot of puns. It has a lot of jokes, but it's also like when it wants to kind of flex its dramatic muscles, it does pretty well. Like I'm not going to say it's great, but like it does pretty well. Your character is pretty excellent. Her name is Honor, I think. And she meets her little buddy Scout, who is a little flying robot who woke up one day in a scrap heap and can't remember who he is or what he is or why he's there. He just knows that he's a robot, basically. I don't know. Am I summing this up right, Sam? Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Like it's been really good. And for those who haven't seen or played or know anything about this game, it is basically a visual novel in 50 to 60% of it. Then the other percent of it is split between investigating, kind of like Ace Attorney style, and also playing Sudoku to move these investigations along. Like you are finding an item, and in order for Scout, the robot, to identify it, you have to do a Sudoku puzzle to reveal what the item is, basically.
That sounds fun. I like Sudoku a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it was more like Picross for some reason.
Or sorry, Picross. My bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not Sudoku.
I like Picross more than Sudoku.
Yeah,
so
it is Picross. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's great. I have one issue with the entire game, and that's it. Like, and it's such a minor issue; it doesn't even matter. It's that sometimes they will tell really terrible jokes, like dad joke level jokes, and then they'll play this little sound cue that's almost like a rim shot. Yeah, like a badumch. And it's like it does it just frequently enough to where I'm like, oh no.
That seems like you'd be right up your alley, to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised that you don't like it.
It's fine every now and again, but it was like once every like 2 or 3 minutes for a while. It's just, but like,
I mean, that sounds awful. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but like that's literally the only thing I'm complaining about because the rest of it has been good. So I don't know. How are you feeling about it, Sam?
Good so far. I think I need to play more of it. I really like the Scout and Honor. I think they're really fun characters so far. But I think I don't know. I'm still not made my mind up. I haven't played enough yet.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the other characters, Becky is kind of annoying more so than anything, and the other characters that show up in the break room and along the way get to be better. Becky's still a bit of a butt, but you know, I think that's her character.
Yeah.
There is one extremely gay character who is just he gets to be pretty great, honestly. By the end of the case, he gets to be like one of the best characters.
He seems good so far.
Yeah, he's very funny. Also, there's a surprising amount of like cultural references in this game, like to very specific things. Like they'll call out specific TV shows like by name and make references to like I think I sent a picture to you guys last night of to Alanis Morissette's ironic song.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, like they're calling out things very directly, so it's interesting. I haven't seen a game go for it like that in a while.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyways, yeah, we'll probably report back once that game is finished, but initial impressions after 4 or 5 hours are pretty much universally positive for me.
Yeah. I couldn't say. There's nothing negative I have to say about it. I just want to play more of it, you know?
Yeah.
I would probably have played it. I'd be playing it a lot more, but I'm just really enjoying Trails at the moment, and I want to beat that ideally by the 24th, which is when Trails 3 comes out for Switch.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and this is a game you could stretch out because the quote-unquote gameplay is coming from Picross. And one of the things about it is depending on the difficulty you're playing on, you get different amount of like point rewards back. So like if you're playing this puzzle at an easy difficulty, you get 500, but if you're playing it on normal, you get 1,000. And all of those points do add up, and it ties into your investigator rank. So if you cross certain thresholds, you'll go from an F, like all the way up to an S. And you also lose points during an individual puzzle if you use any hints. So it encourages you to actually play straight up Picross.
That's cool. Yeah, I would enjoy playing it on like whatever the hardest is and just like really taking time with the puzzles, because that's my favorite thing about Picross. It's like getting really invested in bigger puzzles.
From the start, I only saw easy and normal. Maybe upon like a second playthrough, there is a hard.
Or if normal's the hardest, that's fine too. I wouldn't be critical of that.
And there are some like they throw some stuff at you. Like there's spoilers, Sam, but there are some timed ones. So you have to complete a certain amount of stuff within a minute time limit, and if you make a mistake, it like cuts 10 seconds off of that time limit, kind of thing.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
Okay.
It's that's interesting.
Cool. Very cool. Well, that's I think everything for our anime minute. Sadly. We talked about 3 anime games in a row. That's a record for this podcast, I think. Not counting times we've talked about games and then actual anime.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So before people tune out and stop listening to the show, I'll get the other newer game that I've been checking out of the way. I didn't play a ton of it. But but I had been waiting for this game called Broomstick League to launch into early access because I wanted to pick it up and give it a shot, even though it's I'm not really looking for more to play, but it's an indie game and the kind of thing that I want to see become a thing that I can just go play when I want to, the way that Rocket League has. And that doesn't happen unless you buy their video game. So it's also like $15 and I already had money in my Steam wallet. So it's a pretty interesting take on Harry Potter meets Rocket League as like a Harry Potter expat who is, I've gotten to the point now where I don't really want a Harry Potter game. I want someone to just take some of those some of the concepts that are cool about Harry Potter and make their own things.
Sorry, you just blew my mind with expat because you're not you're a pat. You're not.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. But yeah, like there's so much about there's like Harry Potter is something that I really love, but also not only does J.K. Rowling kind of suck as a person, but when you go back and look at some of the things from those books, you go, oh, wait, she sucked as a person then too. And it's in there. So anyway, Broomstick League takes the concept of the popular wizarding sport of Quidditch and turns it into its own thing. And comes out sort of looking like Wizarding Rocket League in a cool way. So it's in early access now.
So is it exactly like Quidditch in that there's different balls and people playing different roles?
So that's the way that it's not like, that's why like aesthetically and conceptually, it's very similar to Quidditch, but it actually, from a mechanical perspective, is extremely different because there's only one ball. And the only way to score is to put the ball into the hoop on the other side of the field. The goals are small and round. They're not like Rocket League where it's like a soccer goal. But the way that you control it is pretty cool. So like you have your broomstick and the broomstick goes in the direction that you point basically. And then you can strafe and stuff. And then there's also buttons obviously for ascending and descending, but if you point the reticle down and go down, you go down. So you don't really have to use the ascending and descending buttons too often. But then you have a sprint, you have energy they call it mana. Unlike Rocket League, it automatically refills instead of needing to be refilled by picking up canisters. And you use that energy to boost, but you also use it to do a magnetizing ability. So when you're close to the ball, you can hold down on controller, its left bumper to to magnetize the ball to your character. The other way to pick it up is to just fly through the ball. Once you're holding it, you're holding it. It's not like Rocket League where it's physicsy pushing the ball around. When you're holding it, you're holding it. It does obviously have physics when it's not being held by someone and it's bouncing around and like rolling around and stuff. And then you can use that button, the left bumper. And this is one of the things I'm not sure about with the controls. I kind of might want to change it. You can also use that as a short range, like teleport too. And then there's also a dash button that you can use to it's sort of like the jump and roll in Rocket League, where it'll make you go faster and allow you to like deke people and dodge out of the way of them. And then you're shooting by using the right trigger. And it's just holding it down to charge the shot.
What do you mean by teleport? Like a dash makes sense. That's you're physically moving forward. I imagine you would bump into anything on the way. Is a teleport being able to kind of do the same action, but you're not affecting any physics on the way?
Yes. But you can't do it while you're holding the ball. So you can't teleport with the ball. The teleport is like, it's kind of like a tracer blink in Overwatch where you're pushing the button. And that's one of my only issues with the controls are a lot of times what'll happen is there'll be, because it's, they don't have 1v1s right now. They will eventually. There's 2v2s and 3v3s right now. And so there'll be like, you, another teammate, and two of the other team members all trying to go for the ball, and everyone will be holding down the left bumper to try to magnetize it to them, which is fine, except that then whoever doesn't get it, when you let go of left bumper, you teleport a short distance. So it's kind of like, it's not usually like that big of a problem because you're usually like in the corner trying to grab the ball anyway, so it doesn't really move you that far, but it's a little jarring. So I think I might you can unbind the teleport and put it on a different button. I'm sure in their testing, they found that they preferred it to be accessible from the same button for some reason that I haven't gleaned yet, but it works well. It's hard, I will say. Like it's easier than Rocket League because you pick up the ball and you carry it. But the other thing you have is when you hit right trigger, when you don't have the ball, you do like a force blast, which knocks the ball out of people's hands. So that's how you can do steals and stuff. So the thing that's tough about it is that lining up shots is challenging because the goal is fairly small and the ball has a lot of arc on it. So you charge up a shot and you kind of want it to be full power because otherwise it's not going to go very far. It's going to, if you just like click the mouse button without dropping it, it only drops, like the ball will go like a couple of feet in front of you and then fall. So you kind of have to charge up your shot, which you need to be aiming. And while you're doing that, there's someone running at you trying to knock it out of your hands. So it's definitely challenging. I played a game that against the AI to practice that went into overtime and was like super long. And then I played a game against people and we like just totally wrecked the other team. So it's still needs some like matchmaking assistance, I think. And it is just a game that's kind of hard to grasp. In the same way though that Rocket League was, like I don't think it's not like it's in excess or unapproachable is the right way to put it. I don't know that it is particularly accessible because of how like demanding it can be from a control perspective, but it is it's a cool game and it has a lot of cosmetic stuff already baked into it. There's like a shop where you can buy different trails for your for like while you're flying, you've got a little trail of like color behind you. You can buy different brooms, you can buy different wands, you can buy different outfits. The character creator is good, except that it does the whole like pick your gender, male or female, which in 2020 is starting to get like that's not good enough anymore. But you know,
you should just pick your fruit. But
yeah, exactly.
But is one of the trails that you can get, is it steel and is it cold?
I hope. They do have a lot of, it's the same studio that published, I don't know if it's the same developer, but it's the same publisher at least as Slender the Arrival.
Oh.
So like
Weird.
There's a character emblem for your like card that is a Slender the Arrival logo. And then there's like a shitload. They have like 70 different streamers that they created little logos for that are, I'm sure, pulled from those streamers like art decks, but
that's
it's
bizarre.
kind of yeah, I don't know that it's the same people, even if it's the same listed developer. I don't know that it's the same like actual team that made Slender the Arrival.
The same humans who touched code. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. It's the developer is Virtual Basement. See, they say the developer is Virtual Basement, Code Headquarters, and Blue Isle Studios, and Blue Isle Publishing is the publisher, and Blue Isle is those are the people that made Slender. So and the game Valley and Citadel Forged with Fire, which Citadel is, I guess its reviews are improving. I had heard it was not very good, and that was a bummer to me because it looked cool.
Yeah,
it was like Citadel is like a stick and rock game that it initially looked like maybe it was actually a lot of those games are initially looked like it was actually maybe a cool open world RPG, and then it turned out it was a Rust with dragons. Anyway, I think Broomstick League is totally worth picking up if you play games on PC at all. I'm sure if it takes off, it'll come to consoles. No pun intended. I keep saying takes off, and it's a game about flying around on brooms.
Virtual Basement made Ark, and so I'm just looking at what
made some part of Ark. I'm sure Ark is made by like 47 different developers.
Yeah, they're listed on.
At this point.
They're listed as like being a part of the original Ark, as well as like all of the season passes and expansions and all that. So it's interesting.
And I will say too, something that I was a little surprised by. If you look at like screenshots of Broomstick League, at times it looks like shit. Like that was my biggest concern coming in, was like, man, this looks not good visually. When you're actually playing it, it's in motion, it looks pretty good. It's definitely not like it is not the prettiest game on the list of games that I'm talking about this week by a long shot. It is probably the third prettiest, but it's not an eyesore when you're actually playing it. It all there's something about the visuals that actually kind of inform the gameplay and kind of help things stand out, so you get a clear picture of what's going on. So yeah, I don't know. I recommend it. I think if you're not you don't have to be a Harry Potter fan to be interested, to be into this. It's really just like a cool Rocket League alternative, which not that you necessarily need that, because Rocket League is great, but it is. I'm surprised that we haven't seen more games like this. I'm super into ball sports, alternative ball sports.
Hell games. Yeah, you are.
And I think that we should have more games. We should have more games about tossing balls, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm all about ball handling.
Yes. And
how do you feel about salads?
It should never be tossed.
So, okay. Do you need any scrambled eggs?
It came. It came.
Is this turning into a Frasier joke?
I was having. I started listening to My Brother and Me again. So I have Frasier on the brain. Yeah, we listened to an episode called Frasier's Anime World last night.
Oh my god.
But I was going to say, if you get Broomstick League, be sure to add me on Steam so that you can handle my ball together.
Great.
Speaking of balls, everyone can turn off the podcast now, because I'm going to talk about The Crew 2 for 5 minutes.
Everyone's favorite.
So The Crew 2, the second best open world racing game of 2018.
What was the best one?
Forza Horizon 4.
Okay, yeah.
By a wide margin, and it still is a better game overall. Like, Forza has way better handling, but the biggest problem with The Crew 2 was that the cars all kind of felt the same. Like, it felt different to drive a monster truck than to drive a track car, but all the track cars felt the same, and all the monster trucks felt the same, and all the planes felt the same, and it was just kind of like it didn't have the kind of personality that it needed to, in terms of making the vehicles feel distinct, because it's ultimately a game about collecting lots of cars and upgrading them.
Sorry, refresh my memory. Weren't you also like playing or flying planes and riding boats in The Crew 2?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's kind of like Steep, but Steep's with cars. Yeah. There are 2 different kinds of boats. There's a bunch of different kinds of cars. There are 2 different kinds of planes, and then there's also a helicopter you unlock, but the helicopter you don't do any events with the helicopter. It's just like a for fun vehicle. And for anyone who's not seen it, the concept is you're driving over a condensed map of the United States. It is a huge map. It is obviously like, you can see the Rocky Mountains from Detroit, which, as a former Detroit resident, I can tell you cannot see any mountains when you're in Detroit.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's still a little bit more accurate than Death Stranding was.
Yeah, it is much more accurate than Death Stranding, actually. At least things are geographically placed in the correct locations.
Sure.
They're just not like what I love. I kind of find their weird, chunky U.S. map endearing. Like, the state of Michigan is pretty much just all Detroit and then some farms to the west of it. But they do put in things like you can still fly under the Mackinac Bridge, even though like the Mackinac Bridge is like a 30-second drive from downtown Detroit, which in reality it's like 8 hours away. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of like Midtown Madness.
Yes. And that is ultimately because I love Midtown Madness and games like that so much. That is why I found this game enjoyable, even as everyone shat on it.
Sure.
And I get why people didn't like it. It was definitely middling when it came out. Again, the 2 biggest issues were the AI sucks, and the cars just didn't feel distinct. So they fixed one of those problems. The AI thing, I haven't done any events with AI that are really pushing it. All the ones I've done are ones where I've destroyed the AI. It's more about time anyway. That's kind of what matters more than beating the other cars. But they have added a couple events. They added Demolition Derby, which is not like real Demolition Derby at all, because you're just trying to like run into cars, not back into them, but it's fun. It includes Demolition Racing, where you're like racing around these tracks with like traps on them and stuff. and it's pretty cool. And then they also added hovercraft racing, which I haven't quite wrapped my head around. It's super weird. I'm bad at it. But it's cool that it's in there. But the main thing that they did, aside from the vehicles feel a lot more distinct now. Like even different planes feel like, one of the planes I have feels like super floaty, and it's very easy to like get it into flat spins and stuff, but it's hard to control it with any kind of precision versus some planes that are super, super precise. So it's cool that they have made the vehicles more distinct. But more than that, the thing that they have done, they added PvP, which works well because they set it the way it's designed. You can't hit each other. Everyone's like a ghost. You're all on the same track. You're not racing against people's ghost data. You're racing against a live player, but you can't hit each other, which is actually a good thing because the problem with racing games online is that whole first turn conundrum where everybody like guns it for the first turn and then rams into each other and pushes each other off the track and stuff. It's not fun. Even Forza has that to a degree. And games like F1 try to fix it by including actual penalties that can hit your account if you do that, where then you get matched with people who are also shitty drivers. But for an arcade racer, there's not a good way around it. I think the fact that they made everybody ghosts kind of solves the problem, and it also helps solve any problems with netcode because you're not like bumping into each other and then causing the server to flip out.
Yeah. Well, that's how Trackmania was able to have 200 plus
Totally.
cars on a,
and that's what it's like, is it's like,
yeah.
it's like Trackmania for sure, except that you're actually live racing against each other. You're not setting a time. And I think that the PvP is fun. It's also just doing the races. So it's cool to compare yourself to other players. They do level the playing field. That game, the Crew 2 has really dumb loot in it, which is actually kind of fun because it makes numbers go up, but it doesn't really matter because you'll install like your base motor core part will be power 80 and you'll install a power 90 motor core part and it'll make your lateral G tolerance go up on the car. And it's like, that's not, it just flat stat increases across the board every time you put a better part on it. And then there's like 8 different part categories per vehicle. So it has like loot, but the loot doesn't really matter until you get to the very high end and it starts coming with perks and stuff. But for the PvP, they flatten it like Destiny PvP, where you just like, everybody has the same stats. You have distinct cars that handle differently, but everybody has the same stats. But the thing that they added that actually has me not wanting to play this game probably a fair bit in 2020 is they've put in these things called live summits, which they're basically like themed events that come with 9 activities. 6 of them are always actual like races that are like what you play in the single player. Some of them, it's also, the live summits are single player, but in the story or whatever, some of them are pulled from the story. Some of them are new, like they put a new one in this week, a new event. And then 3 skill challenges, which are just things that are all over the map. They're things like slaloms and top speed challenges and stuff. And you're basically completing them with certain restrictions. So last week it was, the event was called Japanese Drive. And so it was all Japanese vehicles. There was a motorcycle race, there was a dirt bike race, and then there was a drift challenge and a drag race challenge, a street race, and I think a track car race. But they all had restrictions on needing certain Japanese vehicles to use in them. And then when you complete them, it checks your time and you get a certain number of points on a scale of 0 to 100,000. When you complete all of the events, you get a bonus set of points, and then it puts you on a leaderboard. And the different percentage, like the top 3,000 people get the best reward at the end of the week.
Interesting.
Then the top 10,000 people get the second best reward. The top 15,000 people get the third best reward. And then the people who just played it but didn't place get whatever's left.
Is that per platform?
I don't know. I think so. But if it is so, then actually that game has a pretty big player base.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
There's always like 15,000 people on those leaderboards, which is pretty great. If on PC it's got a 15,000 player base.
Yeah, definitely.
But the live summits are really fun. This week it went from Japanese Drive to this one called Airborne. So this week it's all about airplane stuff. So the jump between them was like pretty jarring, but cool to change so drastically what the challenges are about. And it's like 3 air races and 3 aerobatic challenges and then 3 skill challenges this week. I think next week it's all French cars, which is weird, but cool. Going to be driving a lot of Peugeots. And the rewards you get from it are substantial. Like I couldn't
pronounce Peugeot. I have to say this.
Peugeot.
Well, I'm going to say it my way forever.
You're going to be all in my Peugeot.
Specifically. Also, oh God, on that very brief aside, it's still about cars at least. There is a... So the phenomenal Netflix series Drive to Survive released its season 2 last week. It's a documentary series about Formula One. Everyone should watch it, even if you're not into Formula One, because it's phenomenal. They have the 2 Ferrari drivers, one of whom is German and one of whom is from Monaco, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. They jumped in a car together to go drive somewhere, and Sebastian Vettel did his best Southern accent to talk about how he liked country music, and it's hilarious.
That sounds perfect.
Yes. Anyway, cars are cool. The Crew 2 is fun to play, and
cars are cool, Pat.
And I think if you can get it on sale, you should check it out. It's the thing I was going to say about the rewards is that they're like actually meaningful. Like I was pissed that I couldn't quite get a better drift score in the Japanese Drive event and crack the top tier, because if you did, you got this really fucking cool car that was like a Nissan that had a unique cosmetic set on it. And since I didn't get into the top, I didn't get the car, and I got some cool rims, but I didn't get the car. So it's a cool thing, and it actually has some stakes. I'm sure the events will rotate back, so it's not like you'll never have the chance to get it again. But yeah, it's a nice solution. I'm glad they didn't just like put a battle pass in, basically.
Like you were saying this before the show, but now that we're recording, you said it seems kind of like the Ubisoft thing of putting out a game that is received kind of middlingly at launch, and then they just iterate on it on the same game for like a year or two, and then they actually make it into something you want to play, much like Siege or whatever.
It's good enough now that before, when I played it, I was like, these cars and the AI sucks and the handling could better. But now that stuff is backgrounded enough that like I would like them to do a Crew 3, because I would like one that looks better. Like the Crew 2 looks fine, but it still has a lot of pop in and stuff like that. And now I would like to see them build on this platform and release one that looks like next gen. I think I think I was worried after playing the Crew 2 that series was just going to kind of fade away. But anymore, I'm actually pretty confident that they'll make another one. Cause like the other cool thing to see is the developer Ivory Tower has a very clear identity among the Ubisoft studios, and they do a lot of developer streams. They're super engaged with the community. They have like they do monthly updates and usually release like a new vehicle or something. The game has like 364 cars now, or vehicles now.
Are they licensed vehicles? Like you mentioned Nissan and stuff like that. So they're all real vehicles. I don't think all of them are real, but like 90% of them are. I think there's some. Okay. There's a manufacturer in the menu called Proto, and I think that's where they dump like all of the like fake vehicles. The burnout style cars.
Yeah, but 90% of the vehicles are real. Cool. Even like the planes and stuff are like real planes.
So you're flying a Cessna.
They have I did fly a Spitfire for a while. Oh, okay. They have touring cars, which are like track cars that look like street cars, but with spoilers and decals on them. And then they also have
spoilers. So is it saying like Dumbledore or Snape
Yeah.
called Dumbledore on the back of it? And
Yes.
Stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then they also have what they call Alpha One, which is Formula One style cars. And like they have the 2018 Red Bull Formula One car in there and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah. So it's cool. I recommend it. You can definitely play it now like forever if you want to. Like it's definitely one of those where you can play it as a service game if you want to. So it is fun. I probably have like 30-ish hours in it at this point, and I've done about more than half of all of the events on normal difficulty. But there's 3 levels of difficulty that you can complete them on. So you kind of go through all of them once and then go through all of them again, getting better loot, and then go through all of them a third time, where you're like re-rolling perks on loot to get specific sets and stuff like that at the end game. So
yeah. Again, I'm just glad Ubi's done well by their games.
Yeah. I'm glad they're still supporting it. I'm really impressed. Not that like obviously Forza Horizon 4 has been really well supported too. So it's certainly not saying like play this instead of that, but compared to some driving games that just kind of like come out and then don't get anything added to them, this one has been well supported. Also, people should play Steep more.
Yeah, they should make the crew cross Steep, so you get out of your car, you drive your car to the top of a mountain.
Dude, I want it so bad. I'm actually going to reinstall Steep as well and play some more of that, because Steep is such an awesome game.
Imagine if Watch Dogs Legion just combined everything from the Crew 2 and Steep and Watch Dogs into one game.
But I don't want a story for starters.
Oh, sorry.
And I don't want, that's actually the worst part. It's weird, and there is one cool part where you have a friend who uses a wheelchair, and you make a custom car for them to be able to race you. But the Crew 2 absolutely has a storyline, and it is not good. And it is stupid.
Fair enough.
They thankfully backgrounded it enough that you can largely ignore it. It's not like the Crew 1 where you like had to follow the path of the story, but Steep mercifully does not have a story. So I don't really want to shoot people either. So Watch Dogs can stay Watch Dogs. I just want them to make more. Well, I've talked about it many times, but I want them to make a Steep 2 where you're in San Francisco and it's summertime. Yeah. And if they made a Crew 3 where you can get out of the car, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Because there's times when it would be cool to be able to get out of the car and walk into things.
So you would get out of the car, put on a panda suit, and then start dancing. And then you would grab, I don't know, some kind of weapon, and then enter the For Honor universe. And then you would slap, and then you would slap on a night vision set of night vision goggles.
Play Tom Clancy. Yeah.
All right, I'm in.
Sounds great. Look forward to the problem is that all of this is just going to be released as a gotcha mobile game.
And then
like they did with the Clancy verse mobile game that they put out.
Then a versus fighting game.
If only.
Granblue Fantasy. But
I wish you could pit Sam Fisher against a 2011 Corvette.
Hell yeah. Oh, yes.
When you hold the right trigger, the car just drives forward and then kills anybody that runs into.
I gotta go. I gotta open up some Unity. not Assassin's Creed Unity, mind you.
Yeah. So, I think that's all we've been playing this week.
Yeah. Video games, y'all.
Video games take so much effort to play.
This year,
what if you could watch video games as a TV show?
Huh. What if you could? This year has been weird for video games, for what it's worth.
It's going to get weirder too.
Like in what sense? Because we're maybe entering a launch year?
Because we thought we were entering a launch year and we're maybe not entering a launch year.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know, but I don't know. It's a weird year in general. We can leave that there, probably, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, the circumstances, the reasons for it being like the pandemic is awful and horrific. At the same time, as the person who is like, I don't really care about getting new consoles this year. I don't really care about getting new consoles this year. But
yeah,
I'm wondering how much it's going to start affecting, like I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she was asking me if it was going to impact the release of Animal Crossing, because she's a pretty big Animal Crossing fan. And I was like, no.
Like me.
Yeah. I was like, no. Animal Crossing will come out on the normal day. But that's because Animal Crossing is done.
Yeah.
Will it impact the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2? Potentially.
Yeah, probably.
And so that's because, I mean, like this virus is not going away.
Well, it's the whole tech industry, the whole tech sector is being affected. I think we've talked about it before, but there's a lot of manufacturers out of China and Taiwan which make all of the memory and all of the solid state drives.
Totally.
They're in every computer. Like, they're literally like the only shops that do it.
Yeah.
So you are going to see a tech impact, but
yep.
That's why people are saying that it might be impacting console releases this year.
And I mean, I guess too. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think those consoles are releasing this year by hook or by crook. I just think they're going to be more expensive, and I think there's going to be really limited quantities.
Yeah, that could be.
Limited quantities for sure.
I think Apple said something about spinning up production in the US to avoid coronavirus stuff in Asia. And obviously that will cost them thousands of times more, probably.
Well, hopefully it's not in Seattle.
Interested.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, we might be less impacted than facilities in China, but like also our government is not equipped to handle it at all and is dropping the ball very hard. So it's only going to be a matter of time before production on things in the US is also bad and delayed and stuff. I'm wondering how it'll affect game releases more specifically. Like, for example, I don't think there's a problem with the virus in Poland right now, but Cyberpunk was delayed once already, and it was made clear that it was delayed, and also the people working on it are crunching really hard. If one person in that office were to get COVID, then the whole office is wiped out, and like the game's going to get delayed again, right? Like,
yeah, and
they'll just make them crunch longer.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that they'll crunch more, but also the game, you can't crunch while you have COVID.
Yeah. Well,
if you're working from home.
Oh God! But you've actually seen a lot of developers in the States specifically, kind of going out of their way to say, "Hey, all of Blizzard is working from home for the next
which
month.
Is what you should do for sure."
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's wild times.
I guess good year for Stadia. They're the only next gen experience available without spending thousands on a PC.
They opened a new office, and the photo from inside the office. This office is beautiful. It's
really?
Like,
I hadn't seen.
Oh
that.
yeah, it is. It is like, I'll see if I can find the picture. It's like this gorgeous, like very, very like. Lots of wood grain and stuff. They poached somebody from Sony Santa Monica.
I did see that.
I put the picture of the.
Oh yeah, I see it
the
here.
Studios. It's gorgeous. Like, I would love to work in an office like that. It's a real shame that office is going to be shut down in 9 months. Like, not that I want people to lose their jobs, but like, come on.
Yeah, Stadia has just been.
I don't understand when your service is already flagging. Not that Google doesn't have enough money to do anything they want forever, but when the service is already flagging, why would you pour that office space? Has to be millions and millions of dollars, like
because they can use it as office space for like Google Drive in 6 months' time.
Maybe,
They're
but
not
I guess the
worried.
question is, do they need it? I mean, presumably there's already office space dedicated to a lot of those teams. So I don't know. It's just wild to me that like they released this picture. It feels, I guess what it is like, I want people to work in nice environments. I would kill to work in this office, but it feels like sort of a slap in the face to Stadia subscribers, where it's like, we know we haven't done jack shit with this service and it sucks really bad, but look at this beautiful studio we just opened. It's like,
do you know, I think the thing,
show me a game.
The thing that's shittiest for me is that we know that they're not doing well. We know they're not selling games, and that the games they are selling, like online experiences, are like barren. But then you find out it's because they're not giving money to devs. Like, they're giving a really low cut.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how. I assume that people like Bungie and Rockstar got special deals, but like that Kotaku article was just like, yeah, Google isn't paying. Why would we go there instead of Epic, where they are paying?
Yeah,
it's insane.
And not to mention the user base is dwindling.
Yeah, and like Google, yes, is one of the biggest companies in the world, but you know who the other, like, who are some of the other biggest companies in the world are? Microsoft, Sony, like
Nintendo.
Apple is one of their big. Apple is their competitor, you know, like Apple is a huge Google competitor, and they just, like, Apple recently released something saying they have more cash in the bank than any other business in the world. Like, they are sitting on cash because they know that it's sensible to sit on it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fucking wild.
Yeah, like
I have a Stadia subscription right now that I got from.
That was the saddest same I've ever heard.
I mean, it's 3 months.
I want to try it with.
I tried it for like 5 minutes and it worked. I should try some Destiny 2 on it.
I mean, that's the thing.
We should play some Destiny, Pat.
I think we've been nice. I think we've been saying that since the start. The technology is there. It worked. It's good. It's purely the business layer that is killing Stadia.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking at the Stadia store right now, and I could purchase Assassin's Creed Odyssey Stadia Ultimate Edition for $120.
Why?
I was looking at the prices earlier to complain about them on this podcast. Because I was in my local supermarket and they had a copy of Red Dead for £25. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, if I didn't have Red Dead, that'd be a pretty good price. I wonder how much it is on Stadia. Oh, it's £60.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 has been on sale on every platform for like under $10 recently. It is $50 on Stadia.
Yep.
Rage 2 is $60.
Wasn't that a free on PlayStation or a PlayStation Plus game?
I don't think Rage 2 has been yet, but I could be wrong.
I can't remember.
It may have just been announced.
Yeah.
It might be the March game.
Yeah. But no matter like, I could dive into the software development aspect, like perspective on this, like pretty hard. Like, I'll give you the too long didn't read version, where if you're a software developer or a studio or a software development house or whatever, one of the things you want to do is provide value to the people who are buying your shit. So the way you do that is you release things. Yep. Even if it's like a minor release, even if it's a bug fix, even if it's like, oh, we added this feature 2 months ago, but now we're releasing it now so that like people have something new that they can play with. And like, you know, it's perceived value because it's like, oh, you're adding to this thing that people have invested in. That's a good thing. But Google hasn't done any of that for.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I just want to quickly, and then we can move on for good and not talk about Stadia again for a long time.
Yeah.
I want to give you the list of what Stadia in their store is calling best of Stadia.
Okay.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, sure, great game.
2 years ago.
Yeah, but 2 years old.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, it's probably pretty good. The first one was okay.
When did Xenoverse 2 come out?
I don't know, sometime in 2018. I thought it was later than that.
2017. I don't remember. Whatever.
But
more than 2 years old.
But to call it one of the best games on your platform, come on. Darksiders Genesis, okay, pretty new, had a good reception. It's also more expensive on Stadia than it is on Steam, but fucking whatever. Guild, that game sounds bad.
Yeah.
Kine. That game seems pretty okay.
Kine?
But
we
also,
both own Guilt Pack because it was free on Stadia Pro.
we do not own it. We have access to it via Stadia Pro.
What the fuck is Kine? I don't know if I've heard of that.
It's a puzzle game where you have these cute little robots. It actually looks pretty good.
Oh, never heard of it.
If it were on Steam, I probably would pick it up. It might be, and I just haven't seen. Rage 2. That is not one of the best of anything. I like Rage 2. I think it's fun. It is not one of the best of anything. It is not one of the best post-apocalyptic shooters that came out in 2019, if I had to guess.
But it's one of the best of Stadia.
Red Dead Redemption 2, sure, great game. Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Most people call that the worst one in the series, but okay.
Is that the third one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the final game.
No, Shadow's the second one.
Oh,
the final game.
Rise of the Tomb Raider is the final one.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
No, Rise of the Tomb Raider is the second one.
Is it? Whatever.
Yes. Rise of the Tomb Raider is the second one. Shadow of the Tomb Raider came
one
out.
away on Stadia.
Yeah, Shadow of the Tomb Raider came out in 2018. It is the third game in the Crystal Dynamics Tomb Raider series. The final game on Google's best of Stadia list.
So this is the best of Stadia. The best.
This is the best. This is one of the best games you can get on Stadia.
Yep.
Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
What? Breakpoint?
They put Breakpoint on the best of Stadia list.
Yeah.
That game is
my Stadia games
trash.
My Stadia games list is getting pretty long. They all say never played.
That's all right. Well, I don't know if we're going to be talking about Stadia in a year because I don't know if it's going to be here.
Also, you still can't use wireless controllers.
Can you use phones? Can you use phones other than a Pixel now, at least for like your purchases and shit?
Yes.
No,
okay.
Not all.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can make a purchase on any mobile device. So like I have the Stadia app for iPhone.
Yeah.
And eventually they hope to update the app so that you can play games.
I never talked about it on the cast. It does make it look like you can play the games now. Like it has a play button on them. And when you hit the play button, it tells you to go use a PC. It is like, I almost had a complete, I was like, oh cool, they added playing on iPhone. That actually makes this service more interesting to me. Because then I can play it on data potentially on 5G.
I love that.
When you hit the play button, it says it doesn't even tell you what to do. It comes up with a picture of a Pixel phone and a computer, like a art rendition, and then you have to hit read more, and then it takes you to a FAQ that tells you where you can play Stadia games. It is like, oh my god. Oh.
So they announced the Last of Us TV show on HBO. Yeah. Neil Druckmann will be there.
I actually care more about
the
Stadia
writer of
than
Angry Birds the movie.
Yeah, and Chernobyl, but also the writer of Angry Birds.
And the two worst Hangover films.
You really buried the lead on that one earlier, Alex. You said he was the writer of Chernobyl, but you did not point out that he was the writer of the Angry Birds film.
Yeah, people like to call attention to these. But
a really extended piss joke in it, which I'm hoping goes into The Last of Us.
I do like piss jokes.
Piss drinking, to be specific.
Why is there a long piss drinking joke in a child movie?
Oh, hey, you know.
It's a movie for gamers, not children.
Okay.
It's just behaved like children.
The Last of Us is stupid and they don't need to make a show. Moving on.
That's amazing. But yeah, he's actually written some very good movies, but he's also done like Scary Movie 3 and like some kind of he's on board for the screenplay of the Borderlands movie, you know. Who knows where that will go.
Yeah.
But
whatever, get paid.
But
but
Chernobyl's really good. And the writing is one of the best.
He likes Borderlands and The Last of Us and was like, now I've got an in with HBO. What can I get made?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't know if I'm super invested in a Last of Us show, but I'll probably at least check it out.
I'll check it out.
The thing I've said privately that I don't think I've shared on the cast is calling The Last of Us stupid is not fair, but I think it's like vastly overrated because it leans on the
story. Definitely.
And it just, the story is not bad or poorly executed in any way. It just leans on the fact that like most gamers haven't read the road. So like, it's very predictable and rote, and I don't understand. Well, I do understand. I don't think it is kind of worthy of the like showering of praise that it gets. And I think from a gameplay perspective, it is a okay stealth action game. Like it is not particularly great gameplay wise, and the story is well executed, but pretty well tread territory. So I just have always been surprised at the adoration that it's received from players and critics. Because it's like, basically it's like, boy, if you like this thing, let me tell you, there's some media out there that will blow your mind. Because
like I don't think it is a literary masterpiece or anything like that by any means, but I think it is all in the execution, because like back in 2013, it was the closest you got to actually experiencing one of those other pieces of media. Like I'm like the story itself, whatever, it's a linear story. It's you can see the twists and turns coming. Like oh no, Joel gets impaled and now Ellie's on her own. You probably could have seen that coming a long ways away. But it's the execution, it's like the quote unquote cinematography, it's the moment to moment dialogue and
the
stuff.
Acting is good.
Like it's that stuff that kind of elevated The Last of Us. I still think it's really, really good. Like it was my game of the year in 2013, and I think that is reasonable for what came out at that time. I think the standards have raised now. I think The Last of Us 2 is going to be interesting. I imagine a lot of people are going to love it because it's a Naughty Dog game. Like that's going to elevate everything for them by several points. But I don't know. I think The Last of Us is good, but I also see where you're coming from.
I think that like the problem for me is just that narratively at the time, there were still games that were doing more interesting things narratively. So the fact that people are not still talking about a lot of, like, The Last of Us is the game that has persisted when it's not as if like it's not as if its narrative was necessarily groundbreaking for games. It is just that they had a budget to get to produce it at very high levels of polish that I get at the time why people liked it a lot, but I think the like extreme levels of hype for The Last of Us 2, I'm kind of like, what? Why? It looks very pretty for sure, but this is certainly not like groundbreaking in 2020. And it also, but I also find things like the fact that it's like, it feels like it's like it feels like it's fridging. It feels like based on pre-release coverage, who knows, maybe it'll be totally different when it comes out, but like it's very much like the like why can't gay people just be happy in games ever and stuff. Like there's a lot of tropes that it's leaning into based on its pre-release narrative delivery that's like, this sucks. I
have to say, I think this is probably one of the only huge, big AAA games that I have zero interest in playing. Like, I don't think I'll even pick it up, or rent it. Like, I don't know. I struggled through the first one because I enjoyed the story but hated the gameplay. And like, I don't know. They said like this is a game that's all about like anger and revenge. And I'm like, I don't really need that right now.
Yeah, well, and there's so many games that are about that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm probably just being a stickler.
Did they play God of War, which is a game about like fatherhood and like
and anger and revenge, but in a different, but through a much more like, unique and interesting lens.
Yeah, like regret of anger and revenge, like. And the revenge is against the main character, not vice versa.
And I think God of War is a great example of like a game that I think actually, Alex and I talked a little bit about, like, I think maybe its story was also a little overrated, but it's because it is paired with such interesting and innovative gameplay mechanics and such a spectacularly realized world that is a very unique take on its source material. To me, God of War is kind of earning of a lot of that praise, even if the story is maybe, there are better works in literature and film.
Games.
But and games, but I mean, from a AAA perspective, it is certainly a very well told too. Like I'll say this: I think the story in God of War is better than the story in The Last of Us, personally. But
agreed.
But I don't think that we talked about it. I don't think it's better necessarily than like the other games that were on our list that year.
But I still think I would like to give The Last of Us a shot for a show. I just hope it's not going to turn into. I hope it's just not The Walking Dead. The Last of Us. Like Sorry, go. Sorry.
I would like to see it be. I would be interested in it if it were about the collapse specifically, not 6 months later, not a year later. Like, I want to see that shit going down, because the coolest thing about The Last of Us is that the monsters are interesting. It's not quite just another zombie thing, and I think that that part is cool.
Yeah.
So they have announced it's about Joel and Ellie. It's a retelling of The Last of Us.
Have they announced that?
I'm not interested.
Wait, have they actually announced that?
Yeah, they said that.
Oh, then I'm not
no
really
way.
interested.
The guy,
no way.
Craig Mazin, the Chernobyl writer, on his Twitter was like, "We're bringing Joel and Ellie to HBO."
Okay. Yeah.
Oh God.
I'm not as interested in that anymore.
That is.
I'll still watch it because I think that he's a good writer, and I don't know whether you guys listen to the Watchmen podcast that accompanied the show.
No.
Yeah, he hosted that, and he seemed like a genuinely nice guy who cares about the source material stuff. So
and
it'll be really
I'm
interesting.
interested.
It'll be interesting to see how people approach that, like receive that story outside of games.
Yeah. Like there's definitely some making of Chernobyl episodes or mini documentaries that he hosts that are also really interesting. So like I like him.
There was a Chernobyl podcast too.
Yes, there was. I actually listened to that one, but I don't know, if knowing that Joel and Ellie is in there, that's a little bit less interesting.
Yeah,
but no,
because they're already talking about casting Joel and Ellie.
No, what
is interesting?
No, go for it. Joel and Ellie.
Somebody said Nikolai Coster-Waldau for Joel, which I'm on board with personally. I love Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
No idea who that is.
Can't even.
He was Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones.
I haven't watched it, so.
I will believe
you. I will believe you.
A picture. He's great. He did a fantastic show that got cancelled extremely way too early, called New Amsterdam, in like 2010 or something. And basically, he plays a guy who is immortal, whose name that he goes by currently is John Amsterdam, and he lives in New York, and he's lived there since the days it was called New Amsterdam, and he doesn't know why he's immortal. He doesn't know all this stuff, and I think he's a police detective. They made it a procedural.
This sounds probably significantly more interesting to me than watching a Last of Us show.
It's a really good show, and Richard Roundtree played this character in the show. Like, so he lived in a bar or something, and his Richard Roundtree played the bartender, and they were obviously very close. And then you find out at one point that he's his son. And he's got like hundreds of children because he's like 300, 400 years old.
Oh my God.
And he didn't
stupid.
wrap it up, I guess. But yeah, it's a good show. I really liked it.
Other ending or canceled TV shows from 2011 to 2010, 2011. Shit My Dad Says.
Oh, right. With William Shatner?
Will Shatner.
18 to Life. 100 Questions. Apparently that was your All My Children was canceled.
Pat's actually realized that that New Amsterdam exists.
I'm not going to go watch New Amsterdam.
There's a new TV show called New Amsterdam. They didn't even call it anything else. It's literally just called New Amsterdam. It came out in 2018, and it's like very popular.
Wow.
Okay.
Great. But you know what is cool?
What else is fun? What else is cool? From digital pets.
Yeah, from a AAA game.
There's Tamagotchis in Call of Duty now, y'all. I'm great.
Interested in this.
But it's not. They're not Tamagotchi. What are they?
They're called Tamagunchis.
So stupid. I love it.
One of the best features of Modern Warfare, which is my real 2020 game of the year so far, is the fact that you can wear a watch and you can push the T. You can hold the T button down on a keyboard and then select the check watch, and your character holds their arm up and looks at the watch. Yep. There's different watches. Some watches track how many steps you've taken. Some watches track your level. Some watches tell you the time. There's one watch that just tells you the date and time, and it's the in-game text for it implies that you should use it if you're married so that you don't play the video game too late, which is very stupid and kind of fucking sucks, but also made me laugh.
That's dumb.
So this week they came out with a new watch called a Tamagotchi that costs $10. You also get
so fun. It's such a good name.
You also get some charms and some emblems and stuff in the pack. So it's not just the watch. You get a little dinosaur gun charm you can put on your gun. I maintain that Call of Duty Modern Warfare is one of the cutest military shooters of all time because you can make some pretty fucking cute guns.
Okay.
With the Tamagotchis, you equip the watch and you start playing, and then eventually it hatches, and then it can get what is it? It's hungry. Hang on, I gotta pull up the.
Does it beep at you or something? Like, does it call attention to that you have it on when you're playing the game or something?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It doesn't beep at you, but it does have, when you look at it, it has little like icons on the right.
Sure.
And like when you aim a pistol, for example, you can see what's going on it. So you don't have to use the emote button. And it gets these 4 different states. So it's like, I think it's hungry, dirty, tired, and something else. Sick.
Same.
So it's tied to like, when it gets hungry, you have to feed it by getting kills. When it gets dirty, you have to clean it by capturing objectives. When it gets tired, you have to get kill streaks, I think. And then the last one is tied to like, I can't even remember now, like assist or something. I'm having a really hard time pulling up
really interesting.
The blog post about it. But what happened, like it'll level up over time, and then it evolves, and because it's Call of Duty and not like child's game, it can fucking die if you don't feed it the things it needs when it starts giving you the warnings that it needs them. So you could just be bad at Call of Duty and then your Tamagotchi dies, which is sad. Really funny but terrible.
That's a really good addition. I'm glad that they're going weird with that stuff.
I am too, especially because like the original concern that a lot of people like myself had was this game is maybe taking things a little too far, and maybe like not. Maybe they need to tone back some of this realism because like people really fight in war and it's terrible. Instead, they've just gone the opposite direction, and like it's just wild bullshit. You can buy an anime pack that makes your guns have like anime girls on them. Not even like waifu big boobed anime girls, like cute, like very, very, very tame, like fully clothed anime girls. It's
Alex.
Super good.
Sorry.
I'm never gonna find that blog post, but yes,
it's a dumb edition, which is great. Yeah. Modern Warfare is a good game.
Yeah, I dig it. Still has the best skill-based matchmaking that I've seen in a game too. Like I consistently have fun every time I log in. I don't ever log in and go like, that's not true. I had one session that I mentioned in our chat like last week was because I was playing with a friend, and I think he's got a higher MMR than me. Right. So I think that was kind of fucking me over. But it's a very good game.
Know what else was pretty good back when it came out?
Amnesia? Is that where we're going next? Yeah. Amnesia was pretty good when it came out.
Yeah. Well, it was spooky. I don't know if it was that good. Like the water area was definitely like interesting and mechanically cool, but like
I actually think so at the time, I'm better with them now. I should replay Amnesia and see how bad it is for me. At the time when Amnesia came out, I could not play it. I played it most of that game one night. A friend came over and brought his PC over, and we set our PCs up on my dining room table. And my girlfriend at the time thought we were complete idiots because we lived together. So she was there the whole time. And we bought a bottle of whiskey and split it so that I could play Amnesia because I was fucking terrified of that game. Like, I don't know if that particular experience desensitized me or what. Now I'm more okay with scary games. They still freak me out, but I can get through them. At the time, though, I remember everyone was flipping out about the water sequence and like how scary it was. And when I got to that point in the game, I didn't think it was that scary at all. It was just like, oh, it's cool. Don't get me like mechanically, it's good.
Yeah,
but
interesting.
it's like splish splash, you died. Like you can't see anything. There's nothing there to like actually scare you. So I don't know. That part didn't frighten me that much.
Either way,
but
they released
monsters you can see, those were scary.
Yeah, they did release a little ARG video the day before they announced it that Pat, you had sent. It was the little handycam video of people being in a cave and speaking French and being like, what the fuck? Why is this plant here? It was a pretty short video. It was good. And it was coming from Frictional, so you knew it was some kind of game tease. And then I think you and I, well, it was in the group chat. We said, oh, wonder if it's another Amnesia game or if they're just making something totally new. And then the next day, Amnesia Rebirth.
My assumption is that while it is an Amnesia game and it'll tie into the lore of that first game, is that it's probably not as far removed as you might initially think. It is more far removed, than what you would initially think. Like, I bet that it'll probably stand on its own fairly well. Like looking at the trailer, it's definitely aesthetically not the same as Amnesia. Amnesia was very like Lovecraftian and Gothic castle-y.
Yep.
Whereas this looks much more like
wildernessy,
still eldritchy, but yeah, like there's like, ancient cities and stuff like that in this one. So I think it's going to be a little aesthetically, it'll still be pretty distinct. What I'm hoping is that they carry the really, really good narrative design that Soma had, and they cram that into this new game, because Soma is a really cool game from a story perspective that people should play.
If this is like Soma meets Amnesia meets Penumbra, I'm definitely in for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's it would be interesting if they ever tied those universes together, the Amnesia and Soma.
Sam, are you gonna get this for little Todd Howard? Oh, you're muted. But he shook his head. He shook his head. No,
Stan doesn't like spooky games.
No, I do not. I do not care for the spookums.
You can play Soma on the safe mode where you can't die.
Yeah,
you can always do that. It's still spooky, but
I'm not safe.
It's not your pulse is not safe.
Yeah. No,
it's like the Doom multiplayer. But yeah,
wouldn't it be interesting if this game, because there was that patent filed that Sony might put like vitality sensing stuff in the PS4 controller, right?
Or PS5 sweat or whatever.
Yeah, PS5 controller. It would be interesting if Amnesia Rebirth was one of the first games to like take advantage of that.
That would be concept. Awesome. Like, I love those games that like your Eternal Darknesses and stuff, which would kind of mold themselves based on what you were reacting to.
Yeah.
Like if they went back into that kind of thing, that'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I forgot to talk about on the show? The back button attachment.
Oh yeah,
for the PS4.
Right. You did pick one of those up.
Yeah, I bought one, and it's really cool. The buttons are really nice and clicky. They kind of feel like Switch face buttons almost. So the thing I would say is I'm not using it to play a competitive shooter. I'm using it so that I can play a JRPG one-handed while holding a baby.
Hell yeah, you can.
And it's genuinely really, really useful for that.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, Trails has got this really cool thing where I don't feel the need to use the right stick to control the camera. The camera dynamically follows you really well. So I've been able to play a lot of that with it one-handed while holding a baby or eating food or
masturbating,
anything else. Yeah, Keeping it tight.
I wonder if the back button attachment works if you plug the controller into a PC. I wonder if it's a readable input.
Well, how does it? How is it connecting?
It connects
to the
via
controller?
there's like a data port at the bottom of the controller, and it connects to that.
Oh,
yeah, it connects to the like data port thing at the bottom that headsets have used.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not working.
and it's got like an OLED screen on the back, which is crazy.
On the back?
Yeah, the back of it, the screen that you use to select what the buttons do is an OLED screen.
Fancy.
It's very weird. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah,
you literally never even see it. I never look at it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, back? Huh.
It's not that expensive, right? Like,
no, I think it was like 20 quid, 15, 20 quid.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess put an OLED screen on it, but it seems like it's just weird. It's very weird.
I expect that'll probably be the standard for the PS5. They'll be like, oh, it's got an OLED screen on the back. We can charge fucking £80 for this controller now.
Or what I think would be cool is if it had an OLED screen on the front, and somehow they get around needing that by this is how they make the PS4 controller forward compatible, is that the screen's there, you have to turn it around to see it, but it's technically there.
What would be good is if the PS5 controller, instead of having like a built-in OLED screen, had like a portable, like a visual memory unit sort of thing
that you could plug into the bottom.
It had a screen on it.
You could take your Tamagotchi
you could save
on
your
the
games
road.
on it, but you could also like there would be side games. I feel like there was like a Shenmue full JRPG on it, which is very weird.
Yeah,
the actual VMU, which is the joke that I was making. Sorry for people who aren't old who are listening to this podcast.
Dreamcast.
Look, I can't live in a world where the kids don't know what a VMU is. I need to pretend that's
they don't know what floppy disks are.
Well, I mean, that's more
VMUs are more recent than floppy disks.
It's more like a zip drive.
Like, I feel like I was using a VMU and a floppy disk at the same time.
I mean, your computer was very old.
Like CDs were available, but I was using floppy disks to transfer files until I was 18, and I had a Dreamcast before I turned 18. So I was using it at the same time.
I think it would be neat if the touchpad on the PS5 were a touch screen, and you could do things like look down at your Call of Duty watch on your controller. Other things.
I think that's a thing people were even saying before the PS4 launched. Is like, what if this had a screen in it? So maybe if they finally do that, they'll be good. But also, God, battery life on that thing's going to suck butt.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know if that matters that much. And maybe it's the kind of thing where you could turn the screen off, like,
sure.
But it would actually be super cool if like the controller had a little processing unit and you could play certain things on the controller, like sort of in line with the VMU concept. If you could take your controller with you and like play like little condensed game related things while you're away from, like, what if in Trails of Cold Steel you could
play the direct game
classes or play the card game or something like that, and when you reconnected to the game when you get home, it goes, oh, you played the card game, you get experience points or something like that. Could be fun.
What if you brought it with you, had it in your backpack, and then you pass by someone in the street? One could call it a street pass, and you could play these. Yeah, you could play these little mini games with those people that you passed or something.
What if you were playing Destiny and you picked up your weekly quests using the OLED touchpad?
Well, the only difficulty there is, although I suppose if with remote play, if you could stream it, I'm thinking like you wouldn't be able to cram a PS4 into a controller, but if you could stream it, that's a consideration for sure.
Is it the same size as a DualShock 4? I think that would be
super weird.
Like, I think that
replace the touchpad with a screen.
But
I'm
that's
talking
such
like
a tiny screen, though.
Totally, it is. But I don't think you want it. I don't think you bill it as like a Switch.
You're not doing. There's no gameplay on it. It's
not real gameplay.
You go through menus on it.
Okay.
And I think it could be a cool way to the marketer in me, like the marketing angle to me too, is like your controller is that's your controller, and that's also how we sell it to you for $120. But it's your controller, and you load your profile onto it, and then I come over to your house, and using the menu on the visual touchscreen, I can say like, okay, there's a PS4 here, like connect to it, and that way I can carry my profile around and connect and disconnect my controller without like the sort of hassle that is on PS4 right now. And you center like the personality of the system around the controller, and then the system itself is like just the box that you use to kind of unlock that. I think that's an interesting marketing angle that could be fun for people, but well, if I don't think they'll actually do any of this, to be clear. I'm just musing about what I would do.
If they did that, I think they'd have to change the name from the PS5 to the PS4U.
Oh, yeah. Great.
And then you can play games, but only when you're in like within 20 feet ish of the PS4.
Yep.
No, I could see them putting out a PS4 controller that has like a screen in it. Basically, I could see them putting out a Vita that is purely used for remote play in PS Now. That would be weird as hell, but I'd be on board.
Yeah, I think the only reason I don't think that it's impossible. I do think like that's kind of what remote play on phones is for. And you can now connect your PS4 controller to like any kind of phone. So that's the only reason why I think that it would be more likely that you would see it as like as a new feature that's not accessible from phones. But at the same time, all of this sounds cool, but there's no reason to put a screen on the controller really when you think about it, because you can just have a companion app for phones and everybody has that sitting next to them all the time anyway. So
yeah,
kids don't have phones.
Yeah, yes, they do.
I mean, they do, but my kid won't have a phone.
Well, your kid will. I mean, I'm not saying you're doing it. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. You already know a billion times more about parenting than I do. But from what I have heard from other friends of who are parents, if your kid does not have a phone by the time they're like 12 years old, they start getting made fun of for not having a phone, which is insane.
13 is reasonable. I think 13 is reasonable. That's when you can use a social network.
I got my first phone when I was 16, and I only got one because I had a car, and my mom didn't want me to drive around without being able to call me. And it was a flip phone.
I got one when I was like, I want to say 11, and it was like, turn this on to call home in an emergency. And it was a brick with 2 lines of text visible on the screen.
Yeah.
StarTech.
It was a Motorola, but it was candy bar shape. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. It was like pre-modern, pre that era of mobile phone design.
Yeah. I don't think that controller thing is going to happen, but it's a fun.
No, it's not. It's fun to talk about though.
We have one last news story that I put in here as a joke, but
I don't think anyone cares about this.
Everyone who's going to play that game has played that game.
Yeah. It says
let's fight it and just carry on.
Control update will improve map and the Foundation DLC early 2020. Yeah, I don't know. I don't care about the map and control. It was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
It was fine. I think the spaces within it, the art design and stuff is what makes it really cool. The map itself, like, are we talking about like the functionality of the pause screen map?
Correct.
Oh, well, that thing sucked.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about.
It was cool because it was like mysterious. It sucked that it took a while to load.
It never loaded for me in a lot of cases. Like I never had that issue. One time I opened the map and I let it sit there and I went and made a sandwich and ate it and it still hadn't loaded. So, because I wanted to see if it was like a bug or if it was just taking a long time to load. So that map fucking sucked.
That's because you guys are playing on PC, right?
No, I was playing it on an Xbox One X, the most powerful console ever made.
It's basically a PC.
Well, yeah, I mean, but yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to be funny. And
you are being funny. That was genuine laughter, not annoyed laughter. But yeah, I don't care about them updating the map for Control at this point. Who fucking cares? That game is good, and we have mixed opinions on this podcast. I understand. But
sorry, I was
that
busy.
DLC sounds fun.
I was busy playing Murder by Numbers. What were we talking about?
We weren't talking about anything.
Okay. Cool. Anyways, that's it.
Yeah, I
That's-
guess
that's
the end of the
show, isn't it?
podcast.
That's all video
The
games
three-man-
for the next 20 years.
Yeah, the
I guess
three-man show is done.
Stock, I would be interested, just quick before we go, we don't have to have a discussion about it because we're running long enough, but what are the next, say, 4 games that everyone is excited about?
That's a big number given this year.
I know, that's why I wanted to go a little bit bigger than, didn't just want to say 2.
Cyberpunk is interesting.
Let's put it this way: games that you are planning on picking up at this point.
I mean, I'm still planning on picking up Cyberpunk and Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Animal Crossing.
Necro Barista, if it ever comes out, because it was supposed to come out mid last year. I don't know. There's not that much I'm super looking forward to.
I have 3 in March and April. Animal Crossing, 7 Remake, and Trails 4. 3, sorry. Trails 3 for Switch.
I'm going to add Resident Evil
I'll
3
be-
to mine.
Cyberpunk is obviously on my radar, but like Watch Dogs 2, 3, sorry, is Watch Dogs 3 as well, not Watch Dogs 2.
Are you excited for Marvel's Avengers?
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I'm very excited for it. It's going to be bad, but I'm excited for it.
I like that tepid, yeah.
Every year I need one of those that's actually bad that I can tell myself is good, play it for 20 hours, and then give up and then not talk about it anymore. That's going to be my game for that this year.
Yeah.
I like live service games. I like Marvel. I think I'm on board.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I'm very on board. I just think it looks like trash from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, maybe it'll surprise us. But how about for you, Pat? What are 4 games that you're interested
Cyberpunk,
in?
obviously. Marvel, I would list. I would say Iron Harvest, probably, which is not one that's on a lot of people's radar, but it's like it's based on I forget the artist's name, but it's the same artist who did art for Scythe. It's officially part of like that universe, the Scythe universe.
Sure.
So it's like World War I, but with really cool, like vaguely steampunky, but not in an annoying way, mechs. Real-time strategy game. I'm excited about that. Avengers, Cyberpunk, those are all out in September. So,
sorry. You still have one more, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I'm very lukewarm on the fence about. Like it's possible that I'll end up playing Animal Crossing. It's possible that I'll end up playing the Final Fantasy remake, but I'm just not sure yet. So
yeah, I
can kind of have to see.
I can think of one that you might be missing that comes out in just like 4 days.
Ori. Ori, of course. Yeah. I'm very, very excited, but it's so hard to think about because I don't have to buy those games because it's on Game Pass. But Ori is definitely, it's one of those, like, I don't like to do this because I don't like to make assumptions about games before they come out, but I suspect that Ori will probably land quite high on my year-end list based on what I've seen so far and based on the first game.
Yeah, the first game is so good.
Yeah. I didn't talk about it on the show, but I played that last weekend in 2 sittings and immediately got mad because I was like, this is clearly one of the best games of the decade, and like no list talked about it, and that's fucking crazy to me because it is extremely good.
Yeah. Anyways, 2020 is a weird year.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. Can't say that I'm disappointed that I'll have a lot of time to play stuff that I have been sitting on. So many backlog games to play.
Ghost of Tsushima, anyone?
I don't know.
I'll see what it looks like closer to the time.
That's kind of where I'm at with it too. If it is,
I don't really know what it is.
Yakuza 7?
Yakuza 7 is
I'll
interesting.
play Yakuza 7.
But I want to play the other games still. So like, there's so much Yakuza to play that it's great that series is still trucking. Ghost of Tsushima is an interesting one because that's one that I think if it's like kind of like Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of its structure, but a samurai game, I am all the way in for that, like a Witcher kind of thing with samurai game. If it is just even if it's very good and it's just kind of an action game with a vague open world, but it's more about narrative and going from place to place, that's less exciting to me. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure it will be very exciting to someone. So I don't mean to suggest that it's not worth being excited for, but I'm in a place this year where I want crunchy mechanical stuff that is more like that has a lot of numbers attached to it, which is, you know, part of why I'm excited for the game.
Just kind of looks like an Assassin's Creed. I'm interested in that.
That's kind of what I would want it to be personally. Not even if it's super, it doesn't need to have loot and stuff, but just like character progression and a bunch of icons on a map for me to go and do something that are at least vaguely interesting. So I'm hoping that's what it is, but I don't know what it is at this point. It could be a linear action game. Who knows?
It's actually secretly just Crossfire X, but yeah. Anyways,
I like the art. It looks pretty.
Yeah, agreed. Where can people find you, Sam?
Where can people find you?
Around.
Yeah.
My Twitter is on our Twitter. Follow Gaming Fix on Twitter. We're at Fix Podcasts.
Yeah.
And if you want to follow me, but I feel like if you have got this many episodes in,
you're not following Sam.
Friends. We're probably friends or enemies.
Why not both?
Where can we find you, Alex?
Mutually exclusive.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably not at a Taco Bell. I've never been to Taco Bell.
Oh, it's good. I like Taco Bell. We have a couple in England now.
Yeah. Like across the entire country?
Yeah, we have like 10 in the UK. Fiona and I drove 4 hours to our local Taco Bell. So it was like it was like 3 hours, 2 hours drive. So it was 4 hours there and back. Jesus. We drove down there and it was like, it's by the seaside. So we like had a nice walk along the seafront and like browsed some shops we'd never been into before and like had Taco Bell twice.
So was the purpose of the journey to go to Taco Bell or was that just happened to be that? Wow. Okay. Cool.
The purpose of the journey was to go for a day trip. And I was like, well, I want Taco Bell. I've never had it. Let's go. And we went for lunch. And then I was like, we're having this for dinner, right? And she was like, yeah, of course.
Sick. How about you, Pat?
Where can people find you, Pat?
You can't find me at Taco Bell right now because I live in the middle of a COVID-19 outbreak.
Ground zero, yeah.
I'm eating at home when I can. But you can find me on the internet at PJC Plays, where it's mostly politics stuff right now. So maybe don't follow me if you want to mostly hear about video games. Follow me in about 9 months if you mostly want video games.
And then your Twitter baby will have been birthed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Into a presidency.
Hopefully my Twitter baby will be a presidency, the presidency that I want to see.
Your Twitter BB will give you a thumbs up.
I hope so. Man.
A 70-year-old white man will be the president.
We'll see.
Unfortunately, it is almost assured that a white man in their 70s will be the president come November. One of them I happen to like a great deal, so I will be okay with one of them.
What if out of nowhere they just fucking elect The Rock?
Well, I would take The Rock over two of the people running.
Pardon?
If he ran as an independent, he would win.
Probably.
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
But I'll tell you what, depending on how this Democratic primary goes, I might be hoping for Rock to run as an independent.
Yeah. Okay, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Love you all.
Goodbye.
Bye.